Ambassador Rae, thank you for making the time.
Thank you, Michael. Good to be with you again.
So Canada has suspended its financial support for UNRWA. I'm wondering, what would you have to see, what would Canada have to see before that funding was restored?
Well, that's a decision that won't be made by me. It'll be made by the government. But I think what we're looking for now is a response within 4 weeks from the group that's been asked by the Secretary General to do an independent investigation of what happened. We need to understand that the allegations against these individuals, and there may be others, are very, very serious. I mean, it's not something that one would expect to happen, to have people involved in a terrorist attack who are working for the United Nations. That's just goes well beyond the realm of what's acceptable. I think there's general agreement about that. Secretary General did not disagree with that. He insists that they've taken action against the individuals who've been named. But we want to find out more broadly what's happening. How could that have happened? And as I said, for us, it's within a relatively quick time, and we want that to be done within 4 weeks. And we've increased our humanitarian assistance to all the other agencies that are working in the area. That we believe have the ability to get food and get assistance into where it needs to go, we will, together with a number of other countries. There are 14 other countries have also suspended their assistance. We will make a decision after we get the report as to what the next steps have to be, and I think that's a logical approach. I think it's sensible to wait for the facts. We took this decision quickly. We did not take it lightly. But I think it was important to indicate clearly to the UN that it's not just business as usual when we get word of these kinds of allegations.
Mm-hmm. You know, I wonder if there could ever be confidence in the agency again. And I ask that in light of the Wall Street Journal report that says of the 12,000 Gazan employees in UNRWA, about 10%, and again, this is from the Wall Street Journal, they say have ties with either Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Can there ever be a way of restoring confidence in the agency?
Well, I don't, I mean, with great respect to any newspaper, I don't know what evidence they have to back that up. I think we all have to understand that UNRWA, together with every other agency that hires Palestinians and people working in the community, is going to have a challenge in terms of vetting people and making sure that people don't let their political views interfere with the integrity of their work. And I, you know, if you said UNRWA has this many people, you could well argue that any agency that's working in that circumstance is going to have to deal with that problem. So it's all very well to come up with bold, you know, numbers and then say means that nobody can ever have faith in UNRWA again. UNRWA is working under very difficult circumstances, and I think we have to take a practical, fact-based approach to how we go forward. We've also, frankly, got to deal with, we're in the middle of a humanitarian crisis. It's not as if you say, well, we've got the time and we've got lots of, you know, we can take choices, we've got lots of other things we can do. You say there really isn't, you know, we've got to get food to people. The evidence that's come out of the entire UN system about malnourishment, about the risk to children, the risk to childhood development, everything else. We can't be cavalier with people's lives, and we certainly can't be unaware of what's at stake here. We've got to make sure that humanitarian assistance continues.
Mm-hmm. Now, as you know, UN officials did make an appeal saying that really there is no other agency as capable as UNRWA in delivering the aid that is needed by the Palestinian people. Canada, as you noted, is sending aid through different means now, but how do you reconcile the assessment that we heard from UN officials with the strategy Canada is now undertaking?
Well, to be very blunt with everybody, the World Food Program is a UN agency. The World Food Program has trucks, to our knowledge. We know that. We know they're delivering food assistance. So, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with anybody, but the fact is we are giving assistance to organizations that we know can get assistance to people who need it. That's what we're doing. We're doing that. We're not simply turning away from the situation. We're actually stepping up how much we're contributing, and no question that UNRWA is a very important part of the UN system in delivering help. But there are other agencies that are also involved that are directly engaging with Palestinians, and that's the groups that we're helping.
As you noted, Canada is not the only country to have suspended funding to UNRWA. The US, France, Germany, the UK, Japan, just among others. I'm wondering if there have been any discussions with Canada's allies as to some kind of joint workaround if this group of countries, Canada included, is not satisfied with the conclusion of the report due in 4 weeks' time.
Well, I mean, the first thing I can assure you is, yes, we're working very closely with these countries. We had a meeting on Tuesday before the meeting with the Secretary General. There's another meeting taking place today. We are working very closely with countries about where we are, what we need to do, and with what all of our information coming together really provides. We're encouraging the United Nations to do everything it can to carry out a full investigation and to set out what they feel is a good path forward that we can all have confidence in. But we're not waiting for the UN to do that. We're continuing to work closely with everybody as this investigation proceeds, because these are decisions that have to be made in real time. We don't have the luxury of waiting. We need to be able to have a good basis to go forward, and then to figure out what steps we need to take together to have an impact.
I realize you have talked about it perhaps more indirectly, but I do want to ask a direct question here. What do you say to people who are concerned or upset by this move, thinking that Canada is turning its back on the need in Gaza right now and the need amongst Palestinian people?
Well, whenever you make a decision, I mean, this comes from my own political experience, which you may recall from another movie. I mean, you're going to make some people are going to be very annoyed on all sides, and it just happens, and that's been true in this situation as well. We have criticism from people who don't think we should give any money ever, or have given any money ever to UNRWA, which I think is not sensible. I think we needed to give money to UNRWA to make sure they were responding to the needs that were there. And then you have people who say, well, how can you possibly do what you're doing when the humanitarian crisis is there? And to whom we say, we're actually giving an additional $40 million to that assistance. And the money that was given to UNRWA before has not all been used up. So we're not abandoning anybody. We are continuing to work hard at making sure that the assistance gets to the people who need it. But we also need to get an investigation to understand what is happening with UNRWA and how could this have happened on October 7th. We mustn't lose sight of that they're victims to October 7th as well. And the idea that the UN would have even in a very indirect way have been involved in that is not acceptable. And the Secretary General has said that to us. He agrees with that. So I think actually we are doing what we can to make sure we're getting the assistance in. And now, if we can get a ceasefire, which we're still working for and arguing for and pushing for, we can, I think, begin to get more assistance through the door, which is what's required to deal with the imminent crisis in Gaza.
Ambassador Bob Rae, I always appreciate the time. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.